History is filled with pivotal moments, grand battles, inspiring triumphs, and incredibly costly mistakes. Despite our best intentions, humanity seems prone to rid the earth of ourselves. So if you walk away with anything from this list today, it'll be that human error can ruin even the most well-laid plans. I'm Mike with List 25, and from typos with explosive consequences to misplaced decimals that created a spinach myth, here are 25 mistakes that changed the course of history forever. 25. The Adulterers Bible. In 1631, printers Robert Barker and Martin Lucas made a typographical error for the ages. Instead of the clear commandment, "Thou shalt not commit adultery," their version of the Holy Scripture declared, "Thou shalt commit adultery." We might smile about the typo today, but at the time it caused a public uproar since it was a time of deep religious devotion. The printers faced heavy fines and lost their royal license, while the Adulterers Bible became a haunted relic and a highly sought-after collector's item. 24. The Chilean Mint. In 2010, Gregorio Anigas, the Chilean Mint director, accidentally found his way to infamy. While minting a batch of 1.5 million 50 peso coins, a typo somehow made it through quality control checks, and instead of reading Chile, the coins read Chile. Trust me, you do not want to be in that kind of a hot seat ever. The typo turned out to be more expensive than you can imagine. The minting of the faulty coins cost Chile about $30,000. The incident wasn't only embarrassing, it also became a cautionary tale for other mints worldwide. 23. The NASA Hyphen mishap. In 1962, a programmer's error ended a multi-million-dollar mission to Venus before it even left Earth's atmosphere. As a result of a missing hyphen in Mariner 1's guidance code, it veered off course shortly after launch. Faced with the potential for a catastrophic failure, NASA decided to destroy the spacecraft. Today, there are several systems in place to prevent errors like the one that's now known as the most expensive hyphen in history. It includes multiple code reviews, built-in redundancies and failsafes, independent verification and validation, and thorough analysis to identify areas for improvement. 22. The D-Day birthday. The success of the D-Day invasion hinged on a stroke of unexpected luck, courtesy of a birthday party. General Erwin Rommel, a formidable field marshal of the German forces in Normandy, was absent from his post on this crucial day of June 6, 1944. The reason? Well, his wife's birthday bash. His absence created chaos and delays in the German command structure, which proved a critical advantage for the Allied forces. With less resistance on the beaches, the Allies secured a foothold in Normandy, ultimately shifting the tide of World War II. 21. Excite and Google. In the realm of technology, underestimating the potential of a startup can have the type of consequences that turn you into an example of what not to do for the rest of your life. For example, in 1999, the then dominant web portal Excite had the opportunity to buy Google for a measly $750,000. Excite passed on the deal. Yeah, I know. What must that kind of regret feel like? You know what? I don't really want to know. Today, the market capitalization of Google is over $1.76 trillion US dollars, making it one of the most valuable companies in the world. Excite, on the other hand, was acquired by another company in 2004 and eventually shut down its search engine operations. 20. The French military's blunders in Vietnam. After the end of World War II, France found itself smack bang in the middle of a Vietnamese population longing for independence from colonial rule. The Viet Minh, a communist movement determined to remove French rule, was born, and France's efforts to maintain control backfired spectacularly. Their reliance on static fortifications like Dien Bien Phu was completely useless against the Viet Minh's guerrilla tactics and artillery barrages. And since their colonial policies failed to win over the Vietnamese people, France ultimately had to withdraw from the country in 1954. The resultant power vacuum in Southeast Asia, fueled by Cold War anxieties, would soon draw another world power, the United States, into the mix, and the rest is history. 19. The fall of the Berlin Wall. The fall of the Berlin Wall on November 9, 1989 was probably one of the most climactic moments in the world's history. But there's a great backstory behind the circumstances that actually triggered the event. During a press conference about new travel regulations, Günther Schabowski, a spokesperson for the East German government, fumbled with his notes, in the process unintentionally giving the impression that the border restrictions were lifted with immediate effect. The miscommunication ignited a wave of ecstatic Berliners who surged toward the wall that same night. They overwhelmed the unprepared border guards, and the once powerful symbol of oppression was brought down. 18. The Treaty of Waitangi. The Treaty of Waitangi, signed in 1840, is often seen as the cornerstone of modern New Zealand. However, it sparked a great deal of debate. What's at the crux of the matter? 2 languages and 2 different interpretations. The English version of the treaty communicated the power transfer to the British Crown, but in the Te Reo Maori version, the Maori would keep control of their lands and their way of life. I don't know, that's kind of the most important part of the agreement. How could they get it wrong? What do you think? Was it a simple misunderstanding or a deliberate act on the part of the English? One thing is certain, however. It sparked a legacy of mistrust and resentment that continues to haunt Maori Crown relations to this day. 17. Hitler's wonder weapons. During World War II, Hitler made several mistakes, but one of the biggest that we rarely discuss was probably his decision to put his resources into a variety of experimental weapon projects. While some, like the V-2 rocket, were technically impressive, they came too late and weren't produced in large enough numbers to change the war's outcome. Hitler's decision came at a cost. Germany's more traditional weaponry, like tanks and planes, suffered as resources were diverted, and the gamble on wonder weapons backfired. 16. The misplaced decimal point that made spinach a superfood. The iconic image of Popeye downing a can of spinach and changing into a superhuman is part and parcel of our pop culture. However, the scientific basis for spinach's supposed strength-enhancing properties comes from a fascinating but comical historical error. In the 1870s, a German scientist published research on the iron content of foods. Unfortunately, he misplaced a decimal point and inflated spinaches by a factor of 10. His error stayed undetected for decades and gave parents everywhere the misconception that spinach was a superfood capable of granting immense strength. Today, we know that spinach is a valuable source of vitamins and minerals, but that its true iron content is much, much lower than we originally believed. 15. The windows on passenger airplanes. Those small airplane windows may be a bit inconvenient when we're flying over something beautiful, but trust me when I tell you that there's actually a lot of scientific thought behind their design. You see, unlike square windows with stress-concentrating corners, round windows distribute pressure more uniformly. And we learned that the hard way. The de Havilland Comet, introduced in 1952, included square windows as part of its sleek design. Unfortunately, several de Havilland Comets crashed in the early 1950s due to square window failures. Yeah. So while larger square windows might seem like a natural progression as we go forward, it might be better to stick to the little round designs for safety's sake. 14. The missed switch. Have you ever heard of the New York City blackout of 1977? Now, if you're not American, this might be the first time. A lightning strike crippled the Con Edison power grid and plunged the city into darkness. To get the power back on, several switches had to be flipped in an exact sequence, and unfortunately for one very unlucky operator, one of them was missed. The city ended up with a 25-hour blackout with devastating consequences. The stifling summer heat and lack of electricity ignited a wave of looting, arson, and destruction across the city. The total damages ended up being around $300 million for a single missed switch. 13. The costly game. Before I continue, let me ask you something. How passionate are you about a game of poker? In 1776, General George Washington's troops launched a daring Christmas night raid on Trenton, New Jersey that changed the course of the American Revolution. However, fate nearly handed victory to the Hessians occupying the town. A loyalist farmer learned of Washington's plans and sent a warning note to Hessian commander Colonel Johann Rall. Unfortunately for the Hessians, Rall was playing a game, some say chess and others say poker, and either didn't care or completely ignored the note. His oversight led to the Hessian defeat and became a turning point in that war. 12. Civil War rifles. If you want to hear about an unfair fight, imagine charging into battle with a clunky single-shot musket while the other side fires a barrage of bullets at you from their modern breech-loading rifles. This was the reality for the Union Army during the early years of the American Civil War thanks to James Ripley, the Chief of Ordnance. Ripley, obsessed with saving money, clung to the outdated muskets, dismissing the obvious superiority of breech loaders. Fortunately, with Ripley's removal in 1863, common sense prevailed, perhaps aided by mounting losses. The Union finally adopted the modern rifle, giving its soldiers a fighting chance and eventually securing victory. 11. The spy who slept and lost his papers. In July 1915, the course of World War I took an unexpected turn thanks to a sleepy German spy and a sharp Secret Service agent. Heinrich Albert, the paymaster of a German spy ring in the US, dozed off on a train and, after waking up, accidentally left his briefcase full of sensitive documents behind. His mistake proved disastrous for the Germans. A vigilant Secret Service agent recovered the briefcase and the network was revealed. However, instead of a direct confrontation, the US government leaked the information to the press, and the resulting public outrage eventually led to the US's entry into the war. 10. A faulty repair on a Boeing 747. The aviation industry takes safety extremely seriously, and for good reason. As we've come to learn, a single mistake can have devastating consequences. Case in point, the crash of JAL Flight 123 in 1985. A previous defective repair to the plane's tail section proved disastrous. The compromised tail section failed mid-flight, and the aircraft was obliterated. All 520 people on board died, making it the deadliest single aircraft accident in history. And while it's not a pleasant lesson by any means, the JAL 123 crash revealed the high cost of cutting corners in aviation, and meticulous maintenance and stringent oversight in the industry became the norm. Looking at you, Boeing. If anyone knows the CEO of Boeing, share this list with them. 9. Henry Tandey's decision. History is full of what-ifs, and one such scenario revolves around a British soldier by the name of Henry Tandey. In the middle of World War I, Tandey came across a wounded German soldier near Mâcon, France. According to some accounts, that young soldier was none other than Adolf Hitler. Tandey, defying the brutality of war, chose to spare the soldier's life. I think we can all agree that his act of compassion probably led to one of the most thought-provoking what-ifs in history. 8. George Washington's French blunder. Well, if today's list has taught us anything, it's that spelling matters. But we should probably add correct translation to our lessons learned. In 1754, a skirmish between George Washington's troops and a French patrol spiraled into a full-blown war, largely due to a mistranslated document. Washington signed the agreement, unaware that it portrayed the encounter as an assassination by his men, rather than the skirmish it was. This misunderstanding, layered on existing tensions between Britain and France, was the spark that ignited the French and Indian War, a bloody conflict that reshaped North America. 7. The 2017 British Airways delays. I love traveling, but I hate waiting at airports. How about you? In May 2017, travelers around the world faced chaos when a human error knocked out a British Airways data center. This computer outage caused the grounding of hundreds of flights, leaving over 75,000 passengers stranded. The timing was terrible. A busy holiday weekend meant many frustrated travelers were left scrambling to reach their destinations. While some flights were canceled, others faced long delays. Airports became crowded with passengers dealing with cancellations, rebooking flights, and lost luggage. The IT meltdown cost British Airways millions of dollars and exposed a major vulnerability: our reliance on technology in today's interconnected world. 6. The missing key. The unsinkable Titanic met a watery grave in 1912, and according to one theory, we can blame the event on a forgetful officer. David Blair, the former second officer, apparently set sail on a new ship with a very important key still in his pocket. His seemingly minor mishap left the crow's nest locker, containing the most important binoculars on Earth that night, inaccessible to the crew. Would these missing binoculars have changed the disastrous outcome? We may never know for sure, but it's a frightening reminder of how seemingly minor events can have catastrophic consequences. 5. The Spice Wars. The real Spice Wars were all about nutmeg, and they were brutal. In the 17th century, the Dutch East India Company, VOC, wanted a monopoly of the valuable ingredient. Nutmeg, found only in Indonesia, commanded a fortune in Europe. The VOC wasn't above strong-arming their way to control. Negotiations with the Bandunese people failed, and the company chose violence. In 1621, the brutal military campaign led to the massacre of thousands of Bandunese civilians. The VOC secured their nutmeg monopoly, but at a horrifying cost. 4. Hannibal's snowdrift. Hannibal Barca, the legendary Carthaginian general, wasn't one to shy away from a fight. During the Second Punic War, he attempted to outsmart the Romans by leading his army across the treacherous Alps in the dead of winter. Can you imagine battling snowdrift with elephants in tow? Yes, they brought elephants. Disaster struck when, according to legend, Hannibal poked a suspicious snowdrift with his cane and triggered a massive avalanche, which buried a significant portion of his army beneath the snow. Weakened and demoralized, Hannibal's forces struggled to continue their campaign and ultimately lost the war. 3. The Russian royals and Rasputin. History is full of bad decisions by leaders, and Tsar Nicholas II's trust in Grigory Rasputin is a prime example. This self-proclaimed holy man wormed his way into the Tsar's favor by promising a cure for his son's hemophilia. Desperate, the Tsar and Tsarina embraced Rasputin's influence. His influence grew, and he eventually started advising on political matters. However, Rasputin's reputation was far from holy. Rumors of a lavish and manipulative lifestyle fueled public outrage and chipped away at the public's trust in the monarchy. Seen as a symbol of the Tsar's detachment from the people's struggles, Rasputin's presence became a catalyst for disaster and ultimately contributed to the collapse of the Romanov dynasty. 2. A study turned Ivy League scandal. Would you pose in the nude if it was required to go to university? Believe it or not, from the 1940s to the 70s, some prestigious universities like Harvard and Yale required their incoming freshmen to take nude posture photos. The program's purpose? To analyze posture and identify skeletal problems. However, the science behind it was shaky at best, and the practice raised serious privacy concerns. Leaks of photos, including those of well-known figures like George W. Bush, Hillary Clinton, Diane Sawyer, and Meryl Streep, sparked public outrage. The program was eventually condemned, and most of the photos were destroyed. However, some, like those from Yale, were archived and sealed. 1. China's Warlords. China's mighty Han dynasty, which ruled for centuries, faced a major crisis in 220 CE. Rebellions threatened to tear the empire apart. In a desperate attempt to regain control, the emperors made a risky decision. They called upon powerful regional leaders to raise private armies and crush the rebellions. Their plan would backfire spectacularly. While the regional leaders were their saviors at first, they soon turned into warlords who only cared about carving out their own territories. The central government, weakened by internal struggles and lacking the military strength to control the warlords, could only watch helplessly as the empire fractured and ultimately collapsed. So, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check out our social medias, including my personal ones, links in that description below. And if you like today's list, be sure to watch the other one we did a while back on some of the world's biggest screw-ups that changed history. So to go to that video now, just click on this link right here. And I'll be honest, one of my favorite thumbnails I've ever done. Love that one. It's fantastic.